Everyone. I'm Stephanie Kales with the North Carolina Council on Economic Education, and I'm here with my colleague Tori Yauk, and we're here with Paula McMillan, who is a member of the North Carolina Association of CPAs. She is a financial advisor, a CPA, a CFP, CGMA, and PFS. So she is very much qualified to answer some of our questions today about financial planning and personal finance. Paula, thank you for being with us, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you for the invitation, Stephanie and Tori.
Absolutely. All right, so I'll just dive in with our first question. Can you explain to me the importance of being banked, and maybe just briefly, what does banked mean? I feel like a lot of people don't really understand how banks and credit unions are benefiting them on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. You know, most of the time when I've heard of being banked, it's more around people who can't get banked. Maybe like I did a financial wellness presentation for a human resources group, and I used Uber drivers as an example, and they were having to pay a lot of fees and whatnot for money orders and everything because they couldn't get banked, and they wanted to get banked. So my advice would be to get banked, which means get a bank account or a credit union account, if you can, as early as you start having financial transactions, or as early as you have money to save. And you're asking about the benefits of it? Okay, so I think having a bank account, you're able to more easily save. You can start gaining interest. It's safer because from theft or from the money getting away from you in some other way. It's easier to transfer money from checking to savings if you have a bank account. It's convenient. You can write checks. You can have online bill pay. They have debit cards. Your statements can offer proof of purchases that you've made. It's cheaper, as I mentioned, without those money orders. And then when you get to a point where you want to access credit, having a relationship with a bank can come in handy, not only just to be able to get the credit, but also to negotiate a better credit score or credit terms. So there are a lot of good reasons for getting involved with a bank or having a bank account.
Yeah, that's a great point. Something that you mentioned was just it being safer and having kind of like proof of your purchases and stuff. Are there any, I guess, insurances in place for my money being inside of a bank versus, let's say, just having a pile of cash in my house?
Absolutely. You have FDIC insurance with a bank up to $250,000 per account. And yeah, as you said, if your home catches on fire, there's nothing to, no recourse from that.
Right.
Having it there is great. And I know I did mention a credit unions. Those can be great as well. I don't mean to focus so much on banks. I happen to have a credit union account myself, and those are actually more owner-owned. Bank or corporate owned. So that means several things. Like it can be less expensive, the fees can be lower, and you can earn more. But sometimes you give up things with technology that you would enjoy with banks. But I enjoy being part of a credit union, and I do a lot of my traditional banking there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next question is definitely going to touch back on some of the safety stuff regarding banks and credit unions, because we hear a lot about like Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, and can people just use that instead?
Well, people can do whatever they want to do, but I would not recommend it. I don't stretch things a lot when it comes to money because, security primarily today. I mean, I recommend using Venmo and PayPal more for what they were intended to do. I think there are a lot of people trying to get into the banking spaces and stretch their capabilities so that, to please their shareholders. But they were more intended to help with making purchases online, sending money to family and friends. I would not recommend using your Venmo and PayPal accounts as your bank. It's not a bank account, first of all, and PayPal would be the first to acknowledge this. I would not even recommend linking Venmo and PayPal to your bank account or debit card account. I would only link credit cards to them. I have accounts there, and I only have my credit card linked. I would not link my bank account. if you did link your bank or debit card account and the PayPal or Venmo account was ever compromised, that money would be coming directly out of your bank account. Whereas with your credit card, you have about 60 days to refute the charges with your credit card company. So it gives you, some extra protection, which is so important with security today. And also for convenience purposes, you have no access to checks with PayPal and Venmo, and you would need a bank account to make withdrawals. And additionally, your PayPal or Venmo account could be locked up for up to 6 months. That has happened before, where you couldn't get access to your funds. So that's not something you'd want to rely on for a bank account. So those are some of the primary reasons.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, those are great points. I haven't thought about several of those. All right, so the next question is switching gears just a little bit, but a lot of people feel like they have a difficult time managing their money or think that they're just too far gone and don't have a handle on things to even start a budget. Can you give us some advice on where somebody could begin with a budget?
Absolutely. And I discourage anyone from thinking they're too far gone. You can do so much with a budget. And as a financial advisor, I create financial plans for people to age 100. And you would be surprised what it can do to a plan just to save X amount per year for every year of your plan. So moving ahead with a budget is a very noble idea, which I highly encourage. And, I just like to remind everybody that I really don't know many people that actually like to create budgets. The people that you might would think like it, they just like the results from it. They like that control. And I like to start with that so that people don't budget because they think that's not me or I'm not good at budgeting. Really, no one is. It can be tedious, but the benefits far outweigh the effort that it takes. So in getting started, the first step is to look at all those places where you're spending money and bring all of those together. It's a little easier to track how much money you make. You can come up with that pretty easily. But then look at your expenses through your bank account, your credit card statements, your PayPal accounts over the last 3 months or whatnot, and really track it over a quarter. And use that to create what your expenses are. And then once you have that, I don't mean to go into too much detail, but this is very important. You have your income, then you have those expenses. Then you start right-sizing it and you see where you have the fluff. And you're like, I spent a little bit more here. I really didn't need that. Or there's some impulse spending. There's some leakage. So then you can start shaving that back and reallocating those dollars to savings or just getting tighter about it. And it really does begin, you want to take a step back and think of your life goals. Maybe it's putting your kids through college, maybe it's taking a great vacation every year. You don't want the little things that are the things that don't matter as much to get ahead of those. So if you stay focused on those goals, it will help you to stay true to that budget more.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you.
So then my next question is, are there different types of budgeting? And if so, do you have a recommendation of like which ones are better than others?
Yes, the one I recommend far and above all others, and you'll see a lot of it on the internet if you want to research it a bit, but zero-based budgeting, and that's basically making every dollar count or being accountable for every dollar. So with that, it just really helps you with that leakage and that waste so that you are going back and using those bank statements like I'm talking about. It's not as much goal-based where you spend 50% on this, 30% on that, 20% on that, but you're really looking at where you're spending money and where you can cut it out. I think you'll get the biggest bang for the buck with that. It does take more time, but really what I find is it's the habits around budgeting that will determine whether you're successful or not. When are you going to do it? Where are you going to be when you do it? What activity supersedes that? So maybe it's when you check the mail, you put it in a certain place, and then every week at a certain time, you go in your office and you do that. So you create habits that will help you be successful. You can't just do it haphazardly or it'll fall off. So with zero-based budgeting, it probably does take a little more time, but it's worth it. Now, I'll follow that up with cash envelope budgeting. I do have a client that she's a little older and doesn't use Excel and whatnot, and she wanted to do some budgeting. So what you can do in that case is you know, if you want to use more cash, you can have what you want to spend for that month and allocate them in separate envelopes for their purposes. And once that envelope's gone, you're done. You can't spend any more on that. You have to go from eating steak to beans or whatever it is, you know, for the rest of the month. So it disciplines you that way. She really liked that.
Oh,
I love that. I love the idea of making it very habit-based too. Like every Sunday, I'm going to sit down and work on my budget. I think that's such a good point.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I think those are all the questions that we had. So again, thank you so much for your time. And I think this is going to be really informative for all of our teachers.
Thank you, Stephanie and Tori. And I wish all the teachers all the success. And I thank them profusely for what they do and how they educate our young minds, the important work that they're doing. So thank you both, and thank you to them.
Thanks.
Thank you.